So this is Linda of Christ is King Forever. I did just watch the apology and several different reviews, kind of takes on the apology from Bethel to everybody, including their congregation. Here's the thing that's interesting about this, but first and foremost, prayers to the victims of Bolts and whatever he did and what happened. I think Mike Winger's doing a video on the evidence, and this is so fascinating to me. And the reason why it's fascinating, outside of the details themselves, meaning the video that was done last week, the video that's being done this week, the difference, the contrast and comparison between these videos, and how you can hear the heart of these elders, these men of authority in the church addressing a very serious issue. And it is incredible to see because it opened my mind and my eyes to a part of church culture that I didn't realize was so complex. And it made me very sad and grieved in my spirit for the elders of their church. And the reason why is because I didn't realize the moving parts of churches that deal with allegations. And, there's so many people that they interact with, especially their church. The fact they didn't know how to process it, that was its own issue. The fact they didn't know how to respond, that was their own issue. The fact they kind of thought, well, it's kind of not my problem. That guy's kind of the head elder, he should do it. That was its own issue. They didn't respond in a timely fashion. That was its own problem. There were so many moving parts to this issue that it's hard to comprehend how a church should have even done it correctly, right, or perfectly. It's almost impossible. But also, this could be the beginning of them creating a system. I think it's a third party group that they're associating with the church. And that third party group is going to take in any complaints or allegations, and then it's going to be presented as a record, on record with the church, and nobody can deny that it's actually there because it's a third party taking it. And I do think there's something about what they're doing that could create part of a system for other churches to follow, like a formula that could create more safety, security, and policies in place that won't let victims go unseen and unheard because, elders are busy, they're running a lot of things at the same time. They have their own human faults, they have their own inability to want to confront and start conflict. Because if you're a person of peace, it's not what you're trying to do. And it made me so grateful to not be a man who has the authority to be something like an elder. I am so grateful to be a woman who doesn't have to deal with that. I am not the head of a church. I'm not somebody in a group of people who everybody's trusting and looking at. I'm not somebody who is even assumed to have such authority or could even be chosen for such a thing. And to thank God for that, because the burden that's placed upon them, especially after hearing their heart, seems so heavy. And I don't even think Bolts is even a member. I don't even think he's an elder. I think he's just associated with the church. And this is their response. So good things could come from this, which is a process that other churches could follow in order to get these accusations seen, heard, and sorted out. Because false accusations do happen. I'm not saying this one is. Clearly there's videos and stuff. But also, this gives the church and these men in the church, the elders, which I believe is a word of encouragement, if I may. The more of a burden God puts on you in this life, and the more that he expects of you in this life, the more that you'll receive on the other side of this. So it might seem like a lot, and to me it seemed overwhelming listening to their way of processing it and explaining what's happening with a heart of repentance. And for us to expect that all churches are going to move smoothly, perfectly, and especially since they're global, they have a lot of people all around the world. And is it possible? I honestly don't know if it is for them to address the church as a global moving body, their church, in a way that can meet every single need of every single soul. So it's almost like the church itself needs to start getting into being their own disciples unto themselves, maybe a little bit, instead of distributing all that to these men alone. Something, and I know that probably will create its own issue because people are flawed and they're going to have more accusations and allegations if they kind of give that authority out a little bit. I'm sure that that's just going to create more issues. But my point is that complicated. It does seem that hard, and it does seem like they are sincere. Last week, I didn't really like what was said. I felt like it was brushing off the victims a bit. But the fact that they came full force this week and thanked Mike Winger for, catching it, and the fact that that's a type of treasure in heaven for Mike to be somebody who is running around making churches remember themselves is really, really a big job, a big deal. And so I think you should go watch the video. I think that they did this accurately and correctly. And it does call me personally to the table emotionally when it comes to my own heart posture, when it comes to conducting myself, even as somebody who's not an elder, who doesn't really understand or see any impact, because usually you're intentionally made blind to any impact, but they are aware of that they sit on a global stage at a global altar with a lot of people from around the world looking at them. A lot of us don't understand the impact we have, whether it's local in our home, small or big, where we're just made intentionally blind to how obvious our actions are, or how seen our actions are. And especially if you yourself are, working through being traumatized, being, lacking the certain types of emotional and psychological support. And, and these guys talk about that themselves as guys who are obviously knowingly to themselves and to people who interact with them ahead of what they're doing. They're the elders. They understand their power. They even said, I don't like conflict. I thought this would it kind of just got pushed over to the side. And my goodness, are we sad about that. It just makes me think about my own heart posture with these things, about the things that I say and the things that I do. And we will be held accountable for all the things we say and do. And it makes me in reverence and in fear, good fear, reverent fear of a holy God who calls men to do such a task. It's almost unbearable to watch. It's almost unbearable. And it's not because I think they're a perfect church or God's calling them to be a perfect church. I know they're trying to be. But it's that act alone does something that is a ripple effect more than any millions of sermons that you could give to live it out and walk it out and say, this is what accountability looks like. There's something so important about seeing the accountability given, repentance given, with a true heart posture that's sincere, and then to hear a side of that stage or the side of that altar that I don't understand and I've never seen, and to have them explain it really opened my eyes to the burden that elders and pastors have. Like, it's a very big burden. It's a very serious, frightening thing to be held accountable, not just for yourself. I can't even be held accountable for myself. You know what I mean? Like, I struggle every day standing with fear and trembling before God every single day. And I can't even stay in line. I'm not even being funny about it. Like, I'm with nervous laughter and real fear. I can't keep my feet on that narrow path on a daily basis when it comes to food, when it comes to certain types of blind spots in my life. I sometimes make a conscious decision not to see it because I'm like, well, I've changed in all these other ways, and you give yourself all these excuses. And I do know healing comes from God seeing these sides of you and saying, I'm going to heal this, but you're going to have to do the other part. I'm going to show you this, but you have to acknowledge it and do what you need to do in order to fix it. Just like with my body dysmorphia, just like with the gender issues. Then wear frilly dresses and make sure your hair is up so that you feel like a woman, because that's what you are. But first he had to show me that was the problem. He's like, you got this one thing you're focused on, but you have so many other things you need to fix. If you don't fix this first, you're not going to be able to fix other things. So we're all victims on some level. Some of us have been victimized for extensive period of times, but some of us also, because we don't see what we're doing, we hurt others. And not aware of ourselves in the way we should be. So that's what, I know this is rambling, but that's what this confession brought me to, was I can't even be accountable to me. And here are these men explaining their burden. And it made me so afraid for them and afraid for me because they're doing well with many souls up until, they got news that something happened they didn't know. And that's just them not recognizing something fully. That's them having miscommunication and having all these burdens placed upon them. And don't we all do that? Don't we all go, well, I'll get to that later, and we don't. So this has brought me, just watching their confession, to a place I don't think I've been to in a very long time. And that's to a place of, like, I think the word is reverence. I don't know what else you could call it, but it's deeper than that. And I think you should watch the video. I think their heart posture is very much correct. And I do think them thanking Mike for that was really cool. I mean, it's humbling to watch, but I'm sure for them it's way more humbling. And it serves in a way, in a capacity that I don't think any of their sermons could have done. May God be with you.